mini hydro project, $1.9 million project to launch. The core mission of EID is to provide water and sewer services. But here we are with a project being launched for $1.9 million, the first $500,000 being approved on March 11th. My opponent got up and acted as bagman to go to the county water agency to get $224,000 to make a project that the EID engineers had struggled to figure out how to make financially work. The only way they were able to do it was get $224,000 there and then count on getting $400,000 from the federal government. That is an absurd project when you look at it and you have 1.6% potential increase in hydroelectric generation. We should not be putting all that money into Project 184, the hydro component that is not paying for itself. You know, the half of Project 184 is for hydroelectric generation, but there is no specific debt costs assigned to the revenues we get from PG&E, no specific overhead costs. So by my calculations, we're losing $2 million a year on something that EID trumpets that they make $4 million or $8 million or whatever the number is each year of pure profit. That's bogus. That's just another special interest that we as ratepayers here are effectively subsidizing PG&E. So that's one good one, and that's one of my opponent put his fingers in. I got up to rail against the board saying this is not a project that should be passed, but the board passed it.
There's certainly criticisms of Project 184. I think that it is a wasteful, certainly there is waste that goes on there, that we got in the business of hydroelectric versus staying as an irrigation district. I think you'll hear from management of the EID that we're basically a 5-business conglomerate. So I agree that we are spending a lot of money trying to maintain Project 184. There was a reason why PG&E wanted to sell it to us and get rid of their asset. There were good things that came out of it. The water rights out of Project 184, pre-1914 water rights, which is a very good thing. So I think one of the solutions that we have, we've got to figure out a way to perfect the water out of Folsom Lake, use that in El Dorado Hills, and then think of options that we can use with the good asset that we have in Project 184, and that is the water that we have.
So your position, to follow?
Yeah.
Your position is that the one project, you cited 200 projects or something that have been approved over the last few years or whatever. The one project that you would hold up as the illustration of we shouldn't do it is Project 184. My question was, what can you hold up one project that you would hold up as an illustration of a project that they approved that they should not have approved?
Well, I think I go back to 184 as being illustrative of us getting into a project that we probably overreached. And I think that's kind of the overarching theme that I have with the EID is they tend to seek to overreach things. They get out in advance of development. And then when we have 2008 hit, we've got infrastructure that's built out, but we don't have development. So the FCCs that we were relying on, $12 million a year, go down to less than $1 million a year. And now we're going, oops, now how do we pay and fund for this? So I think Project 184 is probably one of the most controversial, but I would hold up and go, this is one of those things that we really not necessarily shouldn't have done, but probably could have done better.
The fact is that EID and all these 200 projects overdoes them all. You know, the same month that same month that announcement came out about those Christmas greetings, 80% rate hike, they went out and they built this $1.5 million water tower to serve 115 homes up near George Osborne's home. Now that's crazy. That's crazy to build, you know, something that's 12,500. They took something that they took up the capacity 27-fold on that project. Now that's really stylish, but you know you got to wonder what could you have gotten for $700,000 or $800,000, and then you go project by project by project, and you see nothing but world-class projects being developed. Beautiful projects, but that's what happens when you let engineers or any technical people in any organization have control of what happens. I've been involved with you know, microbiologists and doctors and all kinds of things in my career that have been in my organization. And if you let people, the technical people run amok, they're gonna do what they're trained to do, which is build the best, the biggest and the best. And that's what EID does time and time again. We have $137 million of excess capacity built into all these collective 200+ projects. And that $137 million at 6% debt load is costing us $8 million a year. $8 million versus $50 million of rate. Revenue means that we're paying 1/6 of our rates are going to pay and finance excess capacity. You need some excess capacity, but EID's board and internal staff has just overly cooked this whole thing, and they now want to go out and spend another $60 million in the next few months, and $30 million being for more excess capacity, which is going to drive 7 points of next year's 11% rate hikes.
All right, let's go to the next question. Yes, sir.
Reading about rate hike increases, how are we gonna stop the rate hikes? I mean, I've seen one, if we've already got the debt, how else are we gonna stop the rate hikes?
Again, let me go first. This $60 million debt that I just described, the debt service on that factored into next year's rate and cost plan is going to add 7 points of that 11% rate hike. And if you take out the half of that that's for more excess capacity and not load that on ratepayers, you got 3.5 points just right there. Just right there that we can come off the top for another 11% next year. Now, one of our candidates that was at the last forum says, oh, everything's baked into the cake for next year. Well, that's baloney. That's not the kind of thing that business guys go in and say, well, we'll just throw up our hands and watch this for a while. We'll go in there. I think this has got to be more like when FDR came in. You got to say, what are you going to do in the first 100 days? And one of the first things is not allow this excess capacity to be built up further and not load it on the backs of ratepayers. Another pet peeve I have is we got $500,000 a year that we spend on communications department to tell us what a great job EID does. Why do we need that? Why don't we just have EID do the kind of job that all the ratepayers want to have done?
So since I've gotten involved in all of this, part of the tour, if you will, of being a first-time political candidate is speaking to management of the EID. And the promise that I made to the EID's general manager was, I am going to, push back on some of the things that you present to us. It's not going to, you're going to get challenged, because I think that as an elected representative, it's our job to serve the people who got us. So I'm going to question what it is you're delivering to us, and I'm going to challenge you. How is that going to affect the 14,000 or so people that elected me to get? And in order to do that, I'm going to tell him, I want you to have set parameters. And those set parameters are, here's what we can afford, and within that, you need to come to us with a budget that A, works within the set parameters that we're going to give you, and B, prioritizes the projects that you think we absolutely need done. We prioritize it by safety first, then we need to look at regulatory issues. And then we'll come up with a structure that, for example, I represent railroad companies, and railroad wants to go out and they want to add double track to a particular area, and they have $100 million in their budget. They want to add $1 billion worth of infrastructure. Well, they can't do it. You've got $100 million. You've got to live within that $100 million. That, I think, is our job as folks. And I'm not a hydrologist, and I'm not a person who's technically water sound. I've been involved in water issues for quite a while now. But I think our job is to tell the board, this is what we expect. We don't expect higher and higher rate hikes. We don't expect 11% rate hikes every year. So you need to come back with budgets that are cut 5%, 10%, 15%, and show us what those budgets look like, and tell us what the EID is going to look like if you have budget cuts like that, so that we can make an informed decision as a board. And I agree that there's going to be a moratorium if I get elected, and if Grady and I have enough votes, there's going to be a moratorium on that $60 million in additional debt for next year.
Next question. Greg.
An acquaintance of mine pointed out that EID has a lot of brand new shiny equipment. They're running around in F-250 and F-350 trucks when they used to drive around in Datsuns and Ford Rangers. All their equipment is brand new. Is that part of this debt, or is that just part of retiring the old fleet, or is there a lot of gilding the lily going on there?
I've actually listened to that particular board meeting where they presented, we need to get some new vehicles. The pushback from the board that I heard, the one pushback was, well, did we look at local vendors to purchase these vehicles? And that was it. No, it wasn't, I've got my uncle back in Oklahoma lays tile and drives around in an F-150 pickup truck. He's got his own company. He's got 350,000 miles on the pickup truck. He goes and gets it fixed and drives that around as his work vehicle. I mean, would he rather have a shiny new F-250? Absolutely, but we've got to have people in there who think like, hang on just a second, just because you have 80,000 miles or 90,000 miles on your last F-250, perhaps we need to look at extending the mileage on it, making sure that it's being maintained, not necessarily having to drive it home every single day, having vehicles that you could drive home and drive around town. Maybe we keep a fleet there at the main facility so that you can drive your own personal vehicle there and then use your work truck when you're working.
EID has 162 vehicles for approximately 120 field employees. Some of those are heavy-duty trucks and so forth. They also have 8 director and above level people get car allowances. That's just too many vehicles, and these people are in fact commuting to and from work on the ratepayer's dime. I first raised this thing, I think 18 months ago. I asked the finance director, how many vehicles they had. I knew the answer, and we get this deer in the headlight look, and then a year later he still hasn't sorted out this whole thing. The fact is they just don't look at costs. They don't look at costs at all. They don't think about those kind of things. Yes, twice I think this year they came up with 5 new vehicles at a crack, and they like to bleed them in periodically so that it doesn't look to be such a big thing. Jake talked about what can't we buy these oil plates? Well, that came from the EID board president, who on 2 different occasions has actually suggested to staff, why don't we spend more money? Contract rates labor rates are down now, so why don't we even do more? That's the kind of mentality we have actually leading EID's board. And that's why they pass almost all these 200 projects, every one of 36 projects. They just don't push back at all.
Well, it goes back, if I can just follow up, it goes back to the mentality we were talking about at the first forum, for those of you that were there, that the debt is somewhere around 390 million. The EID came back and, no, it's not 390 million, it's only 370 million. Okay. So, they wave that as a flag of, oh no, it's not nearly that bad. It's not insurmountable, but it's huge. It's a lot of debt for the folks that are paying the rates.